Okay.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Oxwide. It's Friday, the 7th of May, and we've got quite a few things to cover today. So we'll get going shortly. First, I just wanted to say a couple of bits of more general trust news, and I wanted to start by just saying to all of our people who've got friends and family in India at the minute that I can't imagine how difficult this must be. For you, we had some experience of what this could have been like last year, but with some of the scenes we've seen on the news recently and some of what you're reading, it must be deeply distressing. So I just wanted to say on behalf of the Trust that you're in our thoughts and prayers at the minute, and I hope that we start to see some improvement soon and that we start to see those infection rates and the mortality rates starting to drop off. It is a real sign, I think, that with COVID, although we're trying to tackle this within London and different parts of the country, it really is a global issue for all of us. And I've been pleased to see. I'm in various work WhatsApp groups as you are, I'm sure, and I know some of our senior colleagues in the NHS have been talking about what assistance we could offer to India, both in terms of vaccinations, equipment, but also just generally sending moral support. So it must be a very tough time for you. And as I said, thoughts and prayers to all of you. And we really do hope to see some positive or better news coming out of there shortly. COVID itself in the Trust, I think we've just reached a significant point this week, and it does show how we're all moving at different paces through this. But we're now at a point where at the present we don't have a single member of staff who's registered as being off sick as a result of a positive COVID test. I think that's the first time now since last March that that's been the circumstance. So after that 12 months we've been through, we now have no staff off sick with COVID itself or any inpatients with COVID as well, and that's a really quite a significant moment for all of us after the 12 months we've been through. And I think it's something that we're thinking about how we mark this as a trust as well, because I think we shouldn't let that pass without recognising some of the impact of what it's been through, some of the tremendous work that's gone into getting us to this point as well, and also to think about how we all make the most of the next couple of months over the summer, because there's still uncertainty about what next winter holds. But that is an important moment for us at Oxleas, to get beyond that COVID-19 positive moment and to start to think about what the future holds. So I think that's a really important point for us, and over the next couple of months there'll be some news about how we as a trust and how we as a sort of community of people working in Oxleas can mark that and both celebrate some of those achievements, but also take that pause to think about some of the hard times that we've been through as well and create that space. But what you will see on the Ox, and you'll see, I hope, coming through your team meetings, is that sense that we're now able to do more stuff together. There's a couple of initiatives you'll hear about later today. Mine to be with Mark Baker, our Trust Sport and Fitness lead, about some of those fitness opportunities. So have a look on the Ox about some of the opportunities we've got to get together to see a bit more of each other in our teams. I think there's also an FA Cup final draw on the Ox as well for tickets, I believe. So have a look on there, and if you fancy, I've got to say I take no interest in English football whatsoever. It's Scottish football for me. But I'm aware that it's it's the biggest and oldest and most important cup, isn't it, going? So some great opportunities there, and do keep an eye on the Ox, and let's make the most of the summer months. And the birds are singing, the sun's shining outside here, and it's hard not to feel that lift in your heart when you see that. So we've got a couple of things we need to get on to today. But first off, I'm delighted to be joined by Japleen Kaur, who's our head of. Well, tell me your exact job title, Japleen, because every time I talk to you, you're doing more and more interesting things.
Thank you, Matthew. Good morning, everyone. I'm Japleen. I'm the head of volunteering services, the LXP program, and I also look after service user involvement in the trust.
And you're now in Neil Springham's directorate, aren't you, as well, with all of our other allied health professionals and colleagues?
Yes, absolutely. It's great to be there.
Yeah, so really pleased about that. And you're on today to tell us a bit about a volunteering project that's an opportunity for some of our staff. Tell us a bit about this, Japleen.
I think the idea came about during the first lockdown. So we had a lot of team managers and service managers approach us and ask us if we had any volunteers who could bring up their patients for a welfare check-in or just to see how they were doing because they felt socially isolated. And the project's just grown from there, really. We applied for a winter volunteering fund, which was via the NHS England. And we were lucky enough to get the bid, so we got some funding for it. We launched the program last month in April. So we have a project coordinator who's with us 2 days a week, Jill Burns. And the idea is for befriending is not new, is it? I mean, it's been around since the 16th century. And I think in the 60s and 70s, it kind of really took off, and there was a national suicide prevention report that came out. And we're all lonely. I mean, I think at some point or the other in our lives, we've experienced that, or we know someone who has. So it's particularly kind of pertinent in, today's times where some people are more socially isolated than others.
Mm.
So the program hopes to kind of alleviate this in a very small way.
I mean, it's been fascinating. I mean, this last year, it's been a sort of combination of intense periods, huge activity and excitement, and then extremely boring, isolated phases where, you're at home, aren't you? Although despite
Yes.
appearances, I'm not in Pinewood. I'm sat in our spare bedroom, and just behind my cardboard desk, genuinely got a cardboard desk. There's a guitar and a pile of magazines I've not got around to reading and stuff. And you find yourself kind of rattling around in these slightly atomic circumstances, and that's for those of us with families and work connections as well. So the idea of befriending is about offering that lifeline and that human connection, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a very humanistic approach. And I think what the patients, consistently tell us as well is that once they are discharged from our services, it's very chaotic for them. It's anxiety provoking for them to return back home, especially for those who don't have a family support network or might be living by themselves or are shielding because of COVID. And it can be fearful. I mean, it can make them feel anxious and fearful. So the telephone befriender volunteer, the whole idea behind that is that you have somebody who is able to provide you with this emotional support on a regular but consistent basis. So it's the same volunteer who will be ringing you up, as you choose. So maybe it's once a week, twice a week, at a time that you choose as well. So we're extremely flexible. It's not Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. It is more flexible than that. And volunteers are ringing on weekends as well. So it's just about being able to provide that consistent emotional connectedness, I think, which is missing. Because, I mean, let's not forget, loneliness and social isolation are known to be causes of premature mortality, increase in depressive symptoms, high blood pressure, physical, attributes linked with it. And it's all, kind of shown in research that this is what happens if you're extremely socially isolated. So it goes a small way in helping to tackle that when people are newly discharged from our service.
And we'll all recognise that this year. You have those days where we've just been at home day after day after day, and then you get an opportunity to go out and be around people, and you realise that energy you draw from that connection. I mean, I remember our chair, Andy Trosser, and I met a couple of our volunteers at Queen Mary's back last autumn, I think it was. And these were a couple of folk who'd been out driving, taking medication and important medical supplies to some of the families with quite profoundly disabled children who we support. And what was really interesting was talking to them about the way in which the families were waiting for them to come. And it wasn't just that they were there to say, here's your medication, or here's your latest bits for the pump or whatever. They said they'd have conversations and they'd be there for half an hour with someone in the doorway stood at the end of the drive. And it's about so much more, isn't it, than just this. And this is taking that concept forward, isn't it? It's recognizing that routine, the opportunity, the structure it gives you, and just that joy you get from that human connection.
Absolutely. And I think most of the volunteers that we have, we've recruited new volunteers for the program. And, they have a wide variety of backgrounds. So some are psychology students, ex-teachers, event managers who've been made redundant. So you think, why are you doing this kind of volunteering? It's very altruistic. It is about, I've been in a similar situation myself, and now I want to help another person through that. So yes, it is that.
I mean, I did one of our. I mean, we had Roshni on recently talking about Coffee Connect as well, and
Yes.
I did my Coffee Connect last week which was quite entertaining. Because it was with one of our colleagues, Margaret, who I've spoken to before a number of times. We actually discovered we live about half a mile away from each other when we were talking to each other, and it would probably have been just as easy to go and have a walk in the park. But it was great just to get that. So what we're looking forward, what you're looking for really, Japleen, is people to put themselves forward as volunteers. What's the commitment we need from them, and how can people find out a bit more about how they take part?
I think we are at a point where we've got a good amount of volunteers. I think what would be really good is for staff members to now think about referring into our service. So I would love for team managers, service managers, any staff member who's recently known a patient who's been discharged back into the community or from any part of our service to refer in to us, and for an email address that we've set up. It's a very straightforward referral, and our patient's details. We then make contact with the patient and ask them what would they like. We ask them about their interests and how we match them. And then we do a short assessment. And then the volunteer will ring them and do an introduction and say, hello, this is who I am. And then organize a regular telephone contact with them. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people to refer into our service.
Okay, so we want people who've been using our services, mental health or physical health, who we think would benefit from a bit of contact and structure. And we want them to do, and then Steve can work his magic and let us know where those links are, and that will be available on the Ox and possibly on the screen, or we can come back to it at the end of today's programme as well, Japleen. So we've got enough staff involved. We've got enough of our own volunteers involved just now. We need our staff to really think carefully about who they can put our way and getting that contact going. Okay, Japleen, so that was great. So is there anything else you wanted me to ask you about today that I haven't done? Just making sure.
I think it's just a few points to consider is that,
Sure.
It's a voluntary service, and we're not saying that this is a counseling service. We're not saying that this is a therapeutic intervention. It is not a crisis service either. What it is really is it's a listening ear, and it's a friendly chat, and it's hoping to reduce the anxiety that people have once they've been discharged from our services back home. And it's about reconnecting them into their community. And that's what it is.
Yeah. So and I think that's important, isn't it? This isn't a kind of clinical intervention. This is a social, volunteering focused intervention that just offers that conversation. So, but we can offer advice, can't we, on whether it's an appropriate referral or not? But we'd encourage you to really think about this. And I think we can see now, in terms of the range of services we offer, we're trying to make more of that voluntary and community services aspect, both to what we do as a trust, but also the partners we work with. Because what keeps people well, as we've all realised this last year, is where you live, the people that care for you and who you care for, and the things you do with your day, and anything we can do to help people who are feeling that sense of isolation once they've been discharged or under our community teams will be hugely welcome. Okay, thanks, Japleen. Well, we'll have to get you back on soon, because I think there's a lot going on at the minute with lived experience practitioners and other broader aspects of the trust. And I mean, I was at QE last week talking to some of the LXPs working there. We're really making huge strides in that now, aren't we?
Absolutely. And I'd love to come back and talk to you about another exciting opportunity with the peer engagement facilitator. So we've got some roles coming up, and here they are, they're available. I need teams to think creatively about where they could be placed. So all right, well, yes, thank you.
Next time, and let's try and do that somewhere where we can get together, and we'll get Steve out on an outside broadcast and put something together on that front. It's lovely to see you again, Japleen.
Thank you.
And thanks for your time today. Cheers, folks.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Now, so we heard a bit from there, Japleen, about the importance of community services as a lifeline to people. And a couple of months ago, we had Sky News come out and interview a couple of colleagues, Dr. Abby Fadipe, Dr. Derek Tracy, and others about the excellent work that we've been doing in our inpatient services through COVID, and some of the impact that COVID's had on people living with long-term mental illness. Now, what we now have Sky back to do was a piece on our community nurses and some of our community therapist teams as well. And they've been running a short piece over the last couple of days featuring some of those real stars of our community services across Bexley and Greenwich. And we're now just going to play that film from you. And I hope if you've not seen it before, I hope you take the time to have a look at this, because it really does show that throughout COVID, although we've seen a lot about ICU, what's happened in intensive care, actually some really tremendously valuable work, real life-changing work's been happening in people's homes. So let's have a look at that Sky film now.
Hiya, Pam, it's Harriet, the respiratory nurse.
Pam suffered a stroke on Boxing Day. Very soon afterwards, both she and her husband Ron became infected with coronavirus. They travelled to hospital in the same ambulance. They lay next to each other in the same ward. Eventually, she came home. He never did.
He's lovely. All told, I knew him 65 years. He's brilliant. He was a brilliant dad, everything.
How important is it that someone like Harriet comes to see you and helps
brilliant.
you?
I can ring if I want to. I've got their number. If I've got a problem, I just ring them.
What's your oxygen levels been over the last week or so?
It's been too good.
Pam has COPD. It's a chronic lung condition, and she needed oxygen support before COVID. For her, Harriet is more than a community nurse. She's friend, physician, therapist, and much more. And the pandemic means there are many more patients like Pam who need Harriet.
I think we've even seen an increase in referrals into our service over the past few months and year. And I think actually we've got to look at ways of managing that. Community sites are really good at actually looking after patients and managing their expectations. But I think long term, the service is going to have to grow, to be able to cope with the demand.
That lengthening list includes COVID patients with respiratory complications and long-term health conditions. Referrals in Harriet's patch in Bexley, South East London, covered by Oxleas NHS Trust, are already up 10% on the previous year. For Harriet's colleagues, the health crisis has moved from the hospital to the community.
Pandemic is not over for us in the community. Actually, it's just begun for us in the community because we are picking up on a lot of issues that patients have.
We already have people waiting to be seen, but on top of that, we are now dealing with a population of people who've become unwell at home, and we're trying to keep them well and stop them going into hospital. And we're also having to deal with really complex cases coming out. What this means for us is that we now have a caseload of patients who should be on inpatient wards, but actually they're out in the community.
I've seen a massive increase in my referral rate for people that have had COVID. The treatment pathway with high-dose dexamethasone steroids is inducing diabetes in some people. The link between steroids and diabetes is already well known, but it's taken us by surprise, the sheer volume.
Community nurses like Harriet have always provided a lifeline for patients like Len.
Right, if I can just pop this one on your finger, if that's okay.
An often unseen workforce delivering care behind closed doors. It's a role in a post-pandemic world that will be more essential than ever before. Ashish Joshi, Sky News in South East London.
So a great piece there on the work of our fantastic community therapies teams and our district nurses who've been working throughout this pandemic, going into people's homes, right through those really scary times early last year when we didn't really know what was happening with this virus, and delivering that care. And I think, although it's been less visible perhaps to the public, it's been absolutely no less essential to the people and their families who depend on our fantastic community team. So thank you very much to Natalie and all colleagues who featured in that piece there. I think it's great that we've been able to get Sky to focus on this. So it's thanks to Ashish, Joshi and Rachel and their teams at Sky, and also to Lisa and our comms people who've been helping put this together. And we're hoping to get them back soon for another focus on Oxleas and the work we do here. This all helps us as a trust to get the word out about Oxleas as a place to work and to build our reputation. And that helps us in turn with recruitment. But it's also something important about saying thanks to our staff as well and getting that into the public domain and that recognition for them there. Now, last week, Steve and I headed over to High Point House in Greenwich. Always nice to be there in part because I don't get many phone calls because of the phone signal up on the hill, although I think the Wi-Fi signal is much better these days, isn't it? But we were there to meet Dr. NICOLA Reynolds and our colleagues to have a look at a great little piece of innovative work that we've been doing through the Health Innovation Network in London, something called the QB test, which you'll hear a bit more about in a minute. But this has been a superb example of a range of professionals within Oxleas looking at a problem we had around growing delays in our waiting list for assessments and thinking, how can we use different ways of approaching this to try to cut those delays and try to get to a position where we're seeing children on time for their assessments. And you'll hear more here from Nicola and from me about how this QB test is being used as a really important part of the work that we do to provide children and their families with a definitive ADHD diagnosis. So have a look at me having a crack at this test and not following the instructions particularly well. Don't read anything into that. But over to that film now. Morning, I'm here today with Dr. NICOLA Reynolds. Tell us your title, Nicola.
I'm Principal Clinical Psychologist and Clinical Lead for the Integrated Neurodevelopmental Team in Oxleas, but I also work 1 day a week as Deputy Clinical Director for Mental Health at the Health Innovation Network.
And I've come to see you today to talk a bit more about the QB test, which is part of what we do when we're looking at whether children have got ADHD or not. Tell me a bit about the test.
So the QB test stands for Quantitative Behaviour Test. It's a recognised medical device that's been well validated and standardised. It provides objective data about the sort of 3 key measures of ADHD, so inattention, hyperactivity and impulsivity. So it's a short 20-minute sort of computer-based task where a child has to sort of match up some shapes, and whilst they're doing that, it is measuring their attention, their impulse control and their level of activity, which then produces a report for clinicians, and the child's scores are compared to a sort of normative sample of children the same age and gender who haven't got ADHD. So it can give you a really good indication of whether a child is presenting with the core features of ADHD. The reason that NHS England have sort of selected it for rollout is because it's been shown to have a good evidence base. It reduces the number of appointments needed to confirm a diagnosis of ADHD or not. But in terms of sort of the patient journey and sort of clinical decision making, it's been shown to be quite a valuable tool. Lots of clinicians feel that they're more confident about making a diagnostic decision when they have the QB, and parents report that they sort of feel more confident as well about the outcome. So it can be really helpful having the QB as an additional tool because it can help you rule out ADHD much sooner. And I found it particularly helpful in situations where there is disagreement between the school and the parent, or even in one case there was disagreement between 2 parents that co-parented, and having some objective data to show them helped that conversation, helped them to understand why we came to the decision that we came to. What we've found in our team is that because we've got that additional piece of information alongside the questionnaires that we always use together, we don't usually need to spend as long in the actual clinic appointment that we used to. So we generally are able to have a shorter clinic appointment.
Right, Claudia, shall we do the test now?
Yes. So what you'll be doing is a task which involves sometimes red or blue circles or squares, and then you only click the response button if the shapes are identical, so if they match.
So they match shape and colour?
Yes.
Otherwise I don't click?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
This ball on the head, what's that doing?
It links the camera over there and it just tracks your body movement and your head movements.
Okay, all right. So what I'm seeing on the screen is a shape and a colour, and I'm clicking if it matches the previous one. So, Claudia, how long would this usually last then?
This test will usually last for 20 minutes.
And who would be in the room when you're doing it?
It would be me and the child doing the test.
Okay. Do their parents come in and
They come in initially, but then they're usually asked if they could wait outside the room to minimise distractions. It's
quite fascinating. 20 minutes is quite a long time to hold your concentration for, so isn't it? So, do you know as well, and if I'm trying to do something else at the same time, like talk, this is me excusing my low score, but it's quite hard to remember, isn't it?
Okay, so that's the end of the test.
Okay.
You're all done, and thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Right, that was good. Thank you to Claudia for taking me through that, and it's nice to get that magnetic thing off my head. So this is the kind of report then that you get. Is this available straight after the test?
Yes, so the report can be uploaded, or downloaded, I should say, and then uploaded straight to Rio.
Right. Okay.
So what this gives us is an overview of the child's performance on those 3 sort of core domains. So here we can see the child's activity. Each cross represents like 1/4 of the test, so it really represents about 5 minutes. So you can see with this particular child, there is a lot of movement going on. There's some big squiggly lines.
So they sort of started focused, but then got bored very quickly, and they're all over the shop.
And he became much more sort of active. And then this chart shows the sort of how often they were moving and the distance. So in this graph, the child is never ever on the baseline. So there was never a time when he was still, really. And some of those peaks are quite large, so he was also doing some quite big movements. And then down the bottom here, we've got a measure or an overview of the child's attention and impulse control. So the green circles are the correct responses, so where the child clicked when they should have done. The red squares are the kind of impulsive responses, so they clicked when they shouldn't have done. And then here, these little black boxes are where the child didn't click when they should have done. So this really gives us a bit of a measure of how inattentive the child was. And the red squares give us a measure of how impulsive the child is. And then this then generates what's called Q scores, so and a percentile score. So that tells us how the child performed in relation to what we would expect for children of the same age and gender who don't have ADHD. What we show to parents, this is the parent report. This is a summary of how the child did, and then this is a summary of the control group. So what we would expect for a child of that age.
So they can see really clearly, this is my child.
And
this
that's
is
what we would expect.
The reasonable
Yeah.
right. Been great learning about the QB test. This is for ADHD though, isn't it? And what about the ADHD autism pathway? How's the crossover there, and is it part of that?
Yeah, so we know that ADHD and autism spectrum disorders are often co-occur. There's a very high rate of comorbidity. At the current time, the pathways for ADHD and autism are not very well integrated. Services tend to operate quite separately. So we often have situations where a child may wait for quite a long time for an autism assessment, and then during the course of that autism assessment, you realise that they may also have ADHD. And what happens at the moment is that they then generally get referred to the ADHD team, where they may have to wait again and then maybe repeat quite a lot of the assessment already, which we know parents hate. So, hate having to tell the story more than once. And what we've been trialling is actually just in those cases, just doing a QB test, the 20-minute test at the end. They've already had their autism assessments. We've already gathered a lot of that information that we would gather anyway. So it can lead to a much kind of quicker pathway to getting an autism and ADHD diagnosis for those children that are presenting with both.
Okay, it's been great. It's great to see this today. And thanks very much to Nicola, to Claudia, and to the team here for walking me through the QB. And I look forward to seeing it play that part and helping us get those waiting lists down and really improving the experience of families and children. Because waiting that long when you've got a wee kid, it's a long time for the whole family, isn't
Absolutely,
it?
yeah.
And for you as clinicians, it must be frustrating feeling
It is very frustrating when you're reading a referral and thinking, I might not see this child for 2 years. It's quite hard. So
this stuff's great.
We're really excited about this as a team. I think we're really enjoying it.
Brilliant, and that's really come across today. Thanks, Nicola.
Thank you.
So there we go. That was a great chat with Nicola and her colleagues there, and a really good use of innovation on behalf of the Children and Young People's Directorate, who are doing some superb work in that space. So thanks very much to Nicola and Claudia for taking the time to run me through that. Next up, I had a good chat earlier this week with Mark Baker, who's our Trust Sport and Fitness Lead. Mark's going to tell you a bit about a competition that Charlton are putting Oxleas forward in as part of a sort of London-wide initiative around football clubs and NHS Trust, so you can hear a bit more about that. We do need some more people to put themselves forward to take part, so do have a look on the Ox, and Mark, as he explains, can act as a bit of a matchmaker. So if you don't have a full team available between you and your colleagues, do get in touch with him, and he'll make sure that we have enough teams together. It's going to be a good night out at Charlton in the course of May. There's also, as I said earlier, there is a ballot available for NHS staff to get tickets to watch Chelsea and Leicester battle it out in the FA Cup final, possibly for who gets to wear the blue shirts. So do make sure you don't miss out on that as well. But now over to Mark and I for this conversation we've had about a couple of sports initiatives across the Trust. Okay, folks, for this part of Oxwide, as you can see, I'm reporting from one of Scotland's finest football grounds, and I'll buy a coffee for anyone who can identify where that might be. I'm delighted to be joined by Mark Baker, who's Oxleas Trust Sport and Fitness Lead. Welcome, Mark. And you're here today to tell us a bit about the upcoming Oxleas football tournament and a bit more about your job and your role in the Trust. So let's kick off with a bit about the football tournament.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the invitation this afternoon, Matthew. So, yes, my name's Mark Baker. I'm the Trust-wide Sport and Fitness Lead based at the Bracton Centre. So starting off with the football tournament, as you mentioned, the football tournament will be a joint initiative between Oxleas and Charlton Athletic Community Trust. As you know yourself, Matthew, Oxleas have got some great working relationships with the Community Trust. Talking about working with the older adults and also with with CAMS as well. So Charlton Athletic got in touch with myself London-wide, you have the London United initiative, which is made up of all the pro clubs in the capital. Each pro club will choose a NHS trust, and fortunately for ourselves, Charlton have selected us to represent them. So what each pro club will do, including Charlton, is they're doing an in-house staff-only football tournament. So this will be held on Friday, the 28th of May, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. So that's just the start of the bank holiday weekend. We're going to have a male and female tournament, 6 aside. The winner of that Oxleas tournament will then go on to represent Charlton and Oxleas at the London-wide events. That's when Charlton will take a winner of the male and a winner of the female team, and we'll play against other trusts. So potentially we could have a South London derby with our counterparts over at Slam.
So there's a lot of bragging rights to be had here, Mark, isn't there? And if people want to take part in this, and we want men and women and people from across the trust to put themselves forward, where can they find out a bit of information?
Yeah, sure. So on the Ox, there's a piece up there already, and I also added it in the forum as well. The staff forum is a piece in there. If people can't get a team together, just email me just to say that you're interested. We've had several of the ladies email. Their issue is they don't know enough kind of other ladies that want to put a team together. So I said, I can support that. So we can put a ladies team together, no problem. And already we've got, I believe, 3 male teams in there already. IT were one of the first in there. So they're up for it. But yeah, so it should be, a good evening, light-hearted fun. Charlton said they're going to be providing refreshments, a bit of music and everything like that. Fantastic. And I guess for a lot of staff, this is potentially the first time, since the pandemic, we've all kind of come together safely. Yeah. So it should be a good evening.
Okay, that's fantastic, Mark. So people have a look on the Ox, and if you want to play, get yourself forward. With some of the therapists we've got across the trust, we've got some great sports people across the trust. So it'd be great to see them taking part. Whether you're fit and not very good at football, as in my case, or whether you're a great footballer, make sure you put yourself forward, and Mark will help make some links if we need to put teams together. So Mark, though, your role is really quite extensive within the trust. I remember me and Keith Soper huffing and puffing our way around the meadow a year or two ago before the pandemic as part of the work you do over there in forensics. So tell me a bit more about the kind of work that you do here. I've seen you in the gym doing the judo. There's all kinds of things that you're doing really to put physical health at the heart of what we do and its relationship with mental health as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So my role, I'm fortunate enough to kind of lead a team of other qualified exercise professionals. So the work we do across the forensics in the Bracton and the Memorial, we deliver evidence-based exercise interventions. And this is under the guise of occupational therapy, headed by Patsy Fong. So although it's evidence-based, we are encouraged at times we can do a little bit of positive risk-taking. And one kind of example of that is the judo program, as you mentioned. So the judo program runs on a Friday afternoon at Bracton. Obviously, with the pandemic, it's not been able to happen. But we are, following the guidance, and we are looking to get back on the mat in mid-June. So that's something myself, staff, but also more importantly, the service users are looking forward to getting back and getting onto that kind of close physical contact, but in a safe environment. And then off the back of that, we're looking to kind of put a QI judo project together. So we want to basically take the good work that we've done within the forensic directorate and kind of take it to community forensic. So we can kind of offer our service users, particularly at Goldie Lee site, the opportunity to kind of do a little bit of judo. But we'll have other professionals come onto the mat as well. We've got Cole Knott, the drug and alcohol lead, kind of do some work, and also dietitians. So we're kind of using judo as kind of the vehicle, but bringing together staff from other disciplines to kind of engage with service users in a, I guess, non-traditional way, if you like.
I love the idea of a judo-based QI project, actually. So I think that just sounds fantastic. I started running myself to help when I was about 20 odd. And, you know, at the time I was physically not very fit, and also I was struggling a bit with depression as well. And it was, for me, it was to try to help my overall physical and mental health. And since then, it's been an invaluable part of me sort of achieving that sense of balance in my work and life. And it clearly has such a big role to play. Do you find, I mean, my sense is we're more advanced in forensics than we are, for example, in the acute inpatient wards and the adult wards and so on. Is it something you think we as a trust need to invest a bit more time and energy into, making sure that our patients are looking after themselves physically?
Yeah, I mean, with like my role and the other qualified exercise professionals, we sit under the forensic directorate. So obviously our outreach is only as far as Bracton and the Memorial. But there has been times over the past several months where some of the exercise professionals have done some bank work over in the inpatient unit, so Green Park House, Oxleas House and the Woodlands unit. So although they've gone there and done some great work, because we have got gyms that are there, so they've been able to do some like gym inductions and things like that. But yeah, I guess kind of moving forward, it's definitely an area that I'm willing to kind of put a bit more energy into to see if we can kind of designate roles or even if we could kind of upskill current staff to get their qualified exercise professional qualifications. But yeah, I mean, that's where we want to be heading to. You know, we're very much treating people from the neck upwards with mental health, but if we can, go for that whole body approach, it can only be positive outcomes from that.
And you've been supporting us with some staff events and challenges as well, haven't you, Mark? And encouraging things like the e-bike scheme and so on. So as you say, although you're within forensics, some of the reach of sport and fitness is right across the trust.
Absolutely, yeah. And just kind of quick shout out to a staff member over at Pinewood, Aidan Miziri. He got in contact with me last week, actually. He's looking to break the Guinness World Records of maximum pull-ups in 24 hours. So he's approached me to find a suitable location, which we have done. So he's going to be attempting that in the next few weeks or so. But yeah, we've got a very active workforce. We've got people that have completed Ironman triathlons. We've got one particular female colleague who completed in professional boxing. So I'm very keen to hear if there's any other kind of news or any staff out there that need a platform, whether it's any help with training. We could provide them maybe somewhere to train in one of our gyms, and also just a kind of quick mention to corporate gym membership. So across the Bexley gyms, so Crooklog, Sidcup and Erith, Oxley staff can just show their identification. They can get a corporate discount as well.
Right, okay, that's worth knowing about then. So, I mean, I did, on Monday, I'd just gone the bank holiday. I did the first 10K I've taken part in since the lockdown started with other runners, the Ted Pepper 10K, which Bromley Athletic put on. And it's great to be back out doing sport with other people. And of course, we've got park runs starting again soon. There might be something about us doing a bit of an Oxleas takeover. I know a year or two ago, I did a great park run at the GPs in Bexley. So I'll put the NHS forward for us. It'd be great to hear people coming forward with some of those ideas. Do you know what the world record is for the most pull-ups in 24 hours? So,
I believe Aidan said it was around 7,000.
Jeez, I can't do one. So, I can't do one.
Yeah, so I think it's something like he's got to be doing 5 pull-ups every 30 seconds or 5 pull-ups every minute. I'm not quite sure on that, but yeah, he's done the maths, and he's going to have some sore hands.
Wouldn't just be his hands, will it, after that? Well, we'll keep an eye out for that one. So there's lots going on across the trust, isn't there, Mark? There's lots people can get involved in. And I think actually after the year we've all had as well, a bit of exercise, getting outside. I mean, we've seen with COVID, the relationship between your general physical health and your ability to fight off infections and diseases and viruses like the one we've just been through as well. It's a good time of year for people to get out, enjoy the sunshine and kick off that fitness habit if they haven't got one, or restart one if they've already had it. And what better way than getting involved with the Oxleas football tournament as well. So, Mark, there's information on the Ox, isn't there, if people want to find out more?
That's correct, yep. My email address, the sport and fitness inbox, you'll find the details there. So just drop me an email, and look forward to hearing from you all.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Mark. I'm off to get a pie in Bovril, and I'll speak to you later.
Excellent. Enjoy it. Thank you.
Great to catch up with Mark there. I've just seen on Twitter from our Oxfit Twitter account that some of our service users are having a walk in the sunshine as well. And, you know, that connection between physical activity and a general sense of mental and physical well-being is a really important one, both for staff and for service users. And I'm very supportive of Mark and what colleagues are trying to do across the Trust to really promote the ways in which we can get active and help ourselves stay well. Okay, so that's pretty much it from us today. So we've had a good range of discussions there. Great to hear from Japleen about the befriending scheme. And do remember, if you've got anyone you want to nominate, any patients you're treating, people who've been recently discharged or under community teams who you think would benefit from a chat with someone, then do follow up on that and do see what we can do to support them. Brilliant piece of work there from Dr. NICOLA Reynolds and colleagues there with the QB test, and superb to hear from Mark and team. So I hope you all make the most of your weekend. You know, if you're interested in those FA Cup tickets, get yourself in the ballot. There's not long left now. And otherwise, do follow up on the Ox about all the information on today's Oxwide. Look forward to seeing you all soon. Have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye, everyone.